The average retiree in this country is 100% dependent on Social Security. This country can't afford to give all those people a 20% pay cut. They might not be able to afford basic living type stuff, whether it be healthcare or food or keeping the lights on. So they have to fix Social Security. And there's actually some relatively easy switches that they can throw to bring Social Security back into solvency. Now, I'm not saying that all these switches, if they were to throw them, are going to be pleasant to experience, but they would help solve the problem.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Saturday State of Mind. Jess Panico here with my husband, Mike. Hi, Mike.
Ready to rip.
Ready?
Yeah.
We are going to do some myth busting today.
Great.
Is that your favorite type of busting?
Myth busting?
Uh-huh.
Second only to ghost busting.
Wow, I thought you were going to say bust a move, number one.
No, that's not my preferred type of busting.
Or Buster Rhymes, number two.
Yeah. Let's get back on track here.
Okay, anyways, myth busting. We are sadly not going to talk about Busta's illustrious career, but we are going to talk about busting the 5 myths to Social Security. Are you ready?
There's only 5 myths to bust? That should be easy enough.
I got 5 to go over in this segment here today, so we're going to talk about them. Now, I've already given you a hint. They're myths. They're not true. But you're going to talk to us a little bit.
They could be half-truths in fairness, but we'll see.
You know what? Maybe, this is going to be a very titillating episode here.
It's a big deal. Social Security is where most people's foundational income will come from. For most people, Social Security represents about 1/3 of their working income.
It's a lot of dough.
But you got a lot of options. There's a lot of penalties. There's a lot of pitfalls. There's a lot of confusion. And you generally have one chance to get it right, to collect Social Security the right way and stay away from all the nasties. So if we can help anybody on their journey to make the right moves, it'd be a pleasure. Let's do it.
All right, well, here's myth number 1. Claiming early is always better.
Wow, I thought you were going to say something like to the opposite, because there's people who think that you should always delay and people that you should always take early.
Which just goes to show, never trust anybody that talks in absolutes, right?
Yeah, no doubt. So here's the deal. What is the right way to collect Social Security? Do I turn it on at normal retirement age? Do I delay? Do I take it early? I think, which is what you just asked.
Sure.
I just need to know one thing about you, generally, to help you make the right call.
About how long you're going to live?
When are you going to die, man? You know?
Don't know.
If you're gonna croak on me next Thursday, turn on Social Security.
Right.
Turn it on, because if you don't have that much longer to live, then you want to take that money as soon as you can.
So you're about to say something that nobody likes to hear. It depends.
It does depend.
But it does depend.
Right. If you're going to live to 105, delaying, because the difference between what you can collect at 62 versus 70 is nearly double. Mm-hmm. Okay. So if you take small checks permanently because you start benefits early and then you live to 100 years old, you're probably handicapping yourself somewhere in your 80s or 90s, because those checks are permanently small. So for folks who have good health on their side, good genes on their side, it can make a lot of sense to delay. For people who are expecting, say, an average or maybe a shorter lifespan, collecting early can make some sense too. But that's only the first dimensional cut. You have to go a little bit deeper. What other resources are you going to have? Do you have a 401k? Do you have a pension? Do you have an inheritance coming your way? Do you have a negative inheritance coming your way? Everybody always wants to know what that means, right? A negative inheritance is like if you're taking care of elderly parents, or if you've got roommates who won't move out of your homes. That would be your kids, right? So there's all these different factors that come into play. So we need to know and start with one thing. You feeling lucky? How long do you think you're going to live? That's the starting point, but then you have to build out and look at the rest. And so there's no two people who do necessarily quite the same thing related to taking benefits early or late.
And I know you might be like, Jess, that's ridiculous. Claiming early is always better. There are literally some people that think that. So I hate to say it, you hate to hear it, but it does depend. Myth number 2, though, we got to move on here. Social Security will be gone soon.
So there is memoranda that's been appearing on every single Social Security projection for the better part of the last decade, probably longer, that absent intervention with the amount of tax revenue that's being collected and the benefits that are being paid out, that somewhere in the 2030s, I believe it's 2037 now, that the trust fund for Social Security will only have enough funds to pay out approximately 80 cents on the dollar for all the promises that they've made. So what that means is that absent congressional action, everybody somewhere in the late 2030s is going to get a 20% haircut to their Social Security.
You think this country might go into debt?
Funny. So the thing is, there is no will in this country to let Social Security recipients take that kind of cut. The superlative that most people should be aware of in this capacity is that the average retiree in this country is 100% dependent on Social Security. This country can't afford to give all those people a 20% pay cut. They might not be able to afford basic living type stuff, whether it be healthcare or food or keeping the lights on. So they have to fix Social Security. And there's actually some relatively easy switches that they can throw to bring Social Security back into solvency. Now, I'm not saying that all these switches, if they were to throw them, are going to be pleasant to experience, but they would help solve the problem. So just to name some quick ones, Jess, they could raise the Social Security age. They've done it before. They could do it again. They could raise FICA tax. They could raise the wage base. Not a lot of people know that you only pay FICA tax on a certain amount of your income, not all of your income once it exceeds a certain amount. So could they be asking wealthier wage earners to pay more going forward by raising that wage base? Of course, there's other things that they might be able to do as well. But Social Security is one of the few federal expenditures that has direct tax associated with it. So just note, there's no immigration tax, there's no Department of Education tax. There is Social Security tax, and it's paid both by wage earners as well as employers. They're probably going to change that stuff to bring things back into solvency. Yes, will that cause some pain? Sure. But here's the deal. If you're making panic-oriented decisions with your Social Security, I better turn this thing on because I'm afraid they're going to take it away, I'm not convinced that you're acting on good intel.
So you're saying that may Social Security change in the future, look a little bit different than it looks today, potentially, but will it be gone, poof, out of the sky soon? Probably not.
It'd be a disaster if it would be taken away or even changed as described currently. So my betting man's guess is that they'll flick some switches. They'll bring things back into solvency, probably by raising tax.
Myth busted. All right, myth number 3. I can't work and collect at the same time.
Well, you can work and collect, but penalties do apply. There's something called the working penalty. And so when you start Social Security before your full retirement age, that penalty can apply. You are allowed to make a certain de minimis amount before that penalty kicks in. But once you're making approximately more than about 20 grand a year, working and Social Security doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
But if you want to do a couple hours, like, a couple days a week, something like that, just to stay active, maybe working at Home Depot or Home Goods or some other place that starts with the word home that you want to do it, like, it is possible.
People consult. We were just talking this morning amongst the planning team about a wife. She retired and she started selling vintage clothing online to bring in some extra money every single month.
Perfect.
It's bringing in like 1 or 2 grand. That's not so much that she can't do that and collect Social Security at the same time. But if that business really starts to take off and explode and she starts making $100,000 a year, if she's before full retirement age, that's going to almost completely offset what she's able to collect in Social Security. So at a certain point, she probably needs to go turning off that benefit or not engage it in the first place. I want to be 100% clear. Once you're normal or full retirement age, you don't have to worry about this stuff. So if you're 68 years old and you're going to want to go make 100 grand a year running a business and collect Social Security, more power to you. There's no penalties involved for working and collecting Social Security once you get to full retirement age. It's only on the south side that you got to mind your P's and Q's.
Okay, that's busted. Myth number 4, spousal benefits don't matter.
Spousal benefits matter a lot. So there's 2 things that I think a lot of people need to be aware of. One, I think most people are aware of. And then the second is something that's often forgotten, which you should not forget about this. You're entitled to your own benefit or half of your spouse's, whichever is greater. But the catch is that in order for me to collect half of yours, Jess, your benefit has to be on, right? So we might need to coordinate when we're retiring, because if my Social Security benefit is small, let's say I spent time out of the workforce or I was working within a state that I wasn't able to accrue a benefit over time, if half of your benefit is greater than mine, I have to think about timing pretty carefully, because if I want your half, you also have to be collecting, which usually means you got to be retired too. Okay. So we have to think through that because, you said, does spousal benefits matter? Sure, if I can get an upgrade to half of your benefit, that's extra cash flow for our house. That's a really good thing. We just have to think about when we want to retire and try to coordinate that as best as possible through time space. That's not necessarily easy, particularly if there's an age gap or some other things. But to say that spousal benefits don't matter is silly.
Yeah, I think sometimes people are just saying, hey, there's one way to collect Social Security, or you collect it early or late. But when you bake into where your spouse is involved too and when you can't can. There are so many different strategies you can implement. All right.
Wait, I'm not done.
Oh, what?
Yeah, hold your
I got
horses,
so
man.
excited. This one is my favorite.
So
Go ahead.
I might be cheating a little bit here because you asked about spousal benefits, and what I'm about to make mention of next are widows or widowers benefits, which aren't necessarily spousal benefits. But when we retire, we're planning as a couple, right? We're doing it in a spousal fashion. And so what we just made mention of is making sure that we can coordinate our benefits, particularly if half of one of our benefits is greater than the others on a standalone basis. But chances are we're not going out like Romeo and Juliet. We're not going to die at the same time on the same
I told you not to cross over those train tracks and you didn't listen to me.
Yeah, chances are there's going to be a gap, okay, in terms of when who predeceases the other.
Yeah.
It's probably going to be me that goes first.
5-foot gap.
On average, by the way, guys, sorry for the news, we tend to predecease our wives by 5 to 8 years.
You do go to the gym a lot.
I try. I'll try to stick around for you, but if I don't make it and you're left behind, you don't get to keep 2 checks.
Darn it.
You get to keep 1.
Okay.
Now, the good news
Well, one person, so I guess that makes sense.
Well, so now let's unpack this a little bit, right? You get to keep the bigger of the 2 checks.
Cool.
And that's a good thing. All right. But half of your Social Security income just went away. Do a corresponding amount of expenses go away?
Half of my electricity bill?
Well, that's unfair. Okay. What does go away? Well, my healthcare costs, maybe some of the grocery bill.
Sure.
But just about everything else does not change. Your property tax doesn't go down, the amount of heat that you need for the winter, right? The cars that, listen, most people, if they lose a spouse, they'll see their expenses go down by maybe 10 or 20%, but they might be losing half of their Social Security income. So the reason I bring all of this up is because a lot of times when people do their planning on the front end, they're looking at their monthly expenses, they're looking at their income sources and their retirement nest egg, and they're trying to make sure that all of their resources, once turned on and used effectively, that all of that can be turned into income that offsets the budget. But what happens when there's not 2 people enjoying retirement and there's just 1, right? So what's actionable about this? I would say 2 things. Number 1, sometimes it does pay to look at the 2 of us, see which one of us has the bigger Social Security check, and possibly delay it to make it as big as possible. That way, whichever one of us does live the longest, it'll guarantee for the survivor that they get the biggest possible permanent survivor's check if the other one doesn't make it the distance with them. Okay. This isn't exactly actionable other than it's something that you have to think about. This next thing I want to mention is what really sneaks up on people. I just said, sure, if somebody passes away, there's a little bit of healthcare expenses go away. We get rid of a car, right? There's less groceries that we need. Something that a lot of people do not see is what happens to the person that's left behind from a tax perspective. Right now, Jess, we get to file
Single.
Married filing jointly, right? Now, if you're gone, I have to file single. And it's easier for single people to pay higher rates of tax because our brackets, single folks, are about half of those of married folks. So what a lot of people do expect is they expected some of their healthcare costs to go down, some of their grocery bill to go down. And then next April 15th, they're shocked to see that their tax bill has gone up. So we cannot be casual about these Social Security decisions. The decisions that you make today not only affect the 2 of us going forward, but when there's just one of us possibly finishing the journey, there's a lot of other downstream consequence that people just generally don't think of in their 50s and 60s.
Well, I like that you brought up taxes because that perfectly segues into my myth number 5.
Excellent.
Which is my favorite. It's almost like we planned this way. Social Security isn't taxable.
Okay. So it can be taxable. It's not taxable for everyone, but most people are going to see their Social Security be taxed. Now, I already said earlier, 70% of Americans are exclusively dependent on Social Security. If that is your one and only source of income, then yes, by the way the rules work and how they do certain calculations, your Social Security may not be taxable. But if you've got annuity income, pension income, rental income, if you're taking distributions from your IRA voluntarily or involuntarily, say through the RMD or something similar, once you have just a little bit more income into the mix, it can make it first possible for 50% of your Social Security benefit to be taxable. And then at the highest level, which isn't that difficult to trigger, 85% of your benefit can be taxable. There's a lot of confusion, especially of late. The one big beautiful bill that was passed in the summer of 2025, when it was announced to the American public, a lot of political representatives or pundits said that there were provisions in the bill that made it so that Social Security was less taxable. And that's not actually true. It was a little bit of political spin, if you will.
What?
What they did is they actually raised the deduction that people can use on their tax return. So a bigger deduction does lead to fewer taxes paid. And it can, yes, offset taxation on Social Security, but a bigger deduction is not an exclusive benefit to Social Security itself, or it wasn't necessarily designed as a mechanism to just make it so that Social Security would be less taxable. At the end of the day, without unpacking all of this, will some people pay less taxes on their Social Security because of that change? Sure, but the majority of the people that we work with are not going to see any meaningful change in that department.
All right, those were the 5 myths, Mike. I hope that you were able to learn something here. Social Security can seem complicated, but it really doesn't have to be as long as you work with a financial professional. If this video was helpful, like and subscribe for more.
See you next time.
If you liked this video and it helped you, watch another one. And don't forget to hit subscribe.